and then I'm a wife. Outside of that, there's not much more going on because I'm choosing to put all my energy into those three things: work, motherhood, marriage, right? It reached a point in my marriage where I just didn't feel seen anymore. And that's nothing. No, I don't want it to be like, oh, it's all him. I don't want it. This is not a point scoring fest. Let me stress that so much. It's not all him. I've made mistakes. He's made mistakes, but we've always had such a healthy, happy marriage. We've never had any like infidelity or anything like that. However, I just stopped feeling seen in the marriage. And when you, after a certain point, you don't want to speak with them. There's nothing to reconcile. There's nothing to talk about. And that's how I feel anyway. What do you feel? What do you think?
I don't know, man. For me, I guess I'm a little bit different to you. For me, I'm not just like, I'm not going to directly confront something. Do you know what I mean? Especially in certain situations. For me, it's just like kind of opening myself up and closing myself off. You know what I mean?
I can't fuck with that, man. This is one thing you did, and you did it when we first met, right? He emotionally closes himself off, and I do think that's a little bit of issues from your past. I don't know what past, but it is.
Hey guys, and welcome to Little Black Book 91. Yes, we're giving you guys a breakdown of this wonderful video talking about divorce after 10 years of marriage. I want to say this is an absolute incredible kind of example of what happens when there is an avoidance cycle happening within a relationship and it's not healed. We have two people who seemingly care about each other. There's nothing wrong with a relationship. It's just that they're seemingly missing each other when it comes to their needs. We have somebody who seems to be overwhelmed, loud, and sometimes a little bit brash in the things that she says. And we have somebody else who's quite calm, seemingly withdrawn and drowning in their own silence. And together they're stuck in this avoidance cycle. And so an avoidance cycle is where one partner seeks connection intensely and the other person withdraws from the conflict, or at least withdraws from the emotional overwhelming that is happening from the other party. Very similar to the anxious and the avoidant cycle. But we'll talk about that another time. The more that one pushes, the more that one person pulls away. And so both of them feel misunderstood, unloved, and emotionally unsafe. This marriage can be saved. And if you're somebody who has a partner that is avoidant, this is going to be the video for you. Especially if you're a woman watching this is the video for you. It's going to solve a lot of your issues. Because this couple here are a prime example of not paying attention to the way that they impact the relationship. A prime example of how their own behaviors trigger more of the cycle and put everybody on this hand. I love that video. So we're going to break it all the way down. So if you want to heal yourself, if you want to have a better marriage or relationship, if you feel like this is something that you're going through, then I need you to stick it out for the next 25 or so minutes. And if you need any coaching as well, maybe you're somebody who's like going through it right now, then reach out to me. But please book a discovery call. I know a lot of you have previously booked normally straight through, but please book a discovery call first so we can find out if my coaching is the right practice for you. Because if it's not, let's go a different way. Let's push you somewhere else to someone who can actually really do what they need to do for you. But if it is going to be a perfect fit, fantastic. At least let me know what your expectations are and let's see how best we can meet those expectations as well. Let's get into this particular video because there's a lot to chop up and a lot to break down. And again, reiterate what an avoidance cycle is. An avoidance cycle is where one partner seeks connectivity and connection with intensity while the other person pulls away due to the overwhelming emotions that are being displayed in the particular relationship or interaction. It pushes one person away, and the other one wants to pull closer. Okay, so it leads to people being misunderstood, unloved, and emotionally unsafe. But before we even get to there, I have to kind of break it down to you a little bit about what attachment styles is really quickly. So John Bowlby is a British psychologist, and he found out through watching young children and the way they interacted with their parents about what we call separation anxiety. He noticed how the children would feel some type of way about when the parent would be present, then leave, and then come back. What he found, there were three essential attachment styles. There's secure, people who are children who are comfortable with their parent, going away and coming back. They showed a level of emotion when the parent went away, but they were able to reattach that parent when they came in without it being necessarily, quote unquote, clingy, right? And then we have the anxious children who, when the parent left, the child would be looking for the parent instantly, not trusting the parent would ever come back because they're afraid of abandonment. Parent comes back and they cling to the parent. And then there was the avoidant children. You leave, they don't care. You come back, they don't care. They're indifferent, my guy. Their needs haven't been met, and they realize they can only suffice by providing for their own needs, and therefore they are literally indifferent, nonchalant to the needs, to the parent or caregiver coming back in. But there's a fourth one. which is what Mary Ainsworth is, who came in later on as a British psychologist and found out there is this thing called dysfunctional or fearful avoidant attachment style, or disorganized for other people as well, right? And what she clocked is that these children too had a very unique way of responding to the parent caregiver, because the child would have gone through a scenario, an environment where the parent was both a comforter and a source of pain. And so the children learn that love is actually pain. And so there is always a feeling of being afraid to connect because it could be taken from them, or there'll be pain attached to the love. And so the child had a very random way of trying to deal with the parents because there was no set way of dealing with them. They never knew what they were going to get in the inconsistency and the unpredictability of that particular parent. Go watch some other videos on Little Black Book 91 coaching. I've gone in much deeper onto those particular attachment styles. Now, let's press a bit forward onwards, because we need to be able to understand what's happening in that video. This young lady went viral. Yes, she went viral on TikTok because she spoke about how happy she was to divorce her husband, or be divorcing her husband. She's not there just yet. And I've seen other people's videos as well around it and talking about how, her needs were not met and she was starved. And I would agree, her needs were not met. But she was not the only one whose needs were not met. Her husband, who she was dating, also's needs were not met. We just watched a video at the very beginning where she said her needs were not met. And then we just saw a video of him talking about how he shuts down when they communicate. So let's quickly just talk about some of the things that happens in the validation cycle, right? You have to understand that when it comes to an avoidance cycle, there is an invalidation cycle. Okay, it is how each partner unintentionally reinforces the core wound of that individual person. Core wound meaning primal fear, right? So for the avoidance, it is for dismissive avoidance, and there is fearful avoidance. Dismissive avoidance tend to dismiss the emotions that they have. Fearful avoidance tend to have both the anxious and the avoidance, right? So they tend to flicker between hot and cold behaviors. The dismissive person tends to do what we call deactivation strategies, trying to keep a distance and thick boundaries between themselves and others when it comes to connecting emotionally. So if you've got a partner who seemingly shuts down and pushes you away, or pushes himself away, goes into silent treatment, you might have a dismissive avoidant person. Maybe you have a partner who does sometimes do this, the shutdown and the silent treatment, but then suddenly becomes online and is all fresh and ready to go again and wants to cling to you all of a sudden. It's confusing a little bit. They seem to be up and down, cold and hot. And those are probably fearful avoidant types of people. And again, that's a very shallow breakdown of that. Now, the fearful avoidant and the dismissive avoidant are what we're talking about here. I believe that she's a fearful avoidant. I believe he's a dismissive avoidant. I'm going to play some clips for you to be able to see and be able to go along this journey with me to make you understand what I'm trying to bring to you. But the invalidation cycle is really important, because when you have a fearful avoidant and a dismissive avoidant, they most of the time begin to invalidate each other. Here's 5 steps that will play a role in that particular case, right? Number 1 is emotional needs arise, and she will feel, and then the fearful avoidant tends to feel overwhelmed or unseen. Because the fearful avoidant tends to have a lot of emotions that they sometimes cannot process, they are overwhelmed. And they end up doing things by servitude without telling the other person or asking for help. And so they start to feel like they're being unseen, which is what you heard her say. She felt unseen, right? And that feeling of unseen is that no one's going to ever be there for her. Because in the reality of her childhood, which she talks about her toxic mother, no one was really there for her. So that's where the avoidance comes in. But the anxious side comes in when there is a parent like her toxic mother who can be comforting yet angry or disregarding or dismissive of your needs. So the child learns that their needs can be a burden onto the other person, which is the anxious side. And then they learn also they have to be hyper independent because the parent also didn't care for their needs at certain points. So for this young lady here, when she says she feels unseen, it's actually understandable. Right? When she said that she feels like her needs are not being met, it's understandable, because for her, it has not been met. And the reason why it has not been met is more than likely because when she actually says it, it's not in a way that can be received by the dismissive avoidant. What you have to understand is the way you say something in your tone and the words you use is going to impact the person. Let me tell you why. Because the natural inclination when a dismissive avoidant doesn't hear things in the right manner is that they begin to shut down. Let's go back to our video quickly and just play a little bit of clip of what I mean by they begin to shut down, right? So you can understand where we're coming from. They're talking about him not opening up. Let's just listen to this again one more time. And we'll get back to why I say her needs are not being met as well, right?
What do you feel? What do you think?
I don't know, man. For me, I guess I'm a little bit different to you. For me, I'm not just like, I'm not going to directly confront something. Do you know what I mean? Especially in certain situations. For me, it's just like kind of opening myself up and closing myself off. Do you know what I mean?
Now let's pause it right there. He lets us know straight away that he's going to open himself up and close himself off, right? And immediately before he's even finished, she's on his neck, right? Yeah, but that's what I bet. She hasn't even let the point land. She hasn't asked him why is that. She hasn't seen it. There's no interest to find out why he's like that. Her immediate response is her fear response. And this is where the invalidation comes in. You see, the dismissive avoidant wants to be heard. The dismissive avoidant wants to feel like they're not being judged. They want to feel like there's an emotionally safe space. But I'm not saying that he's the only one that needs to feel those things. She too has an avoidant side and she wants to feel safe and wants to feel validated. But because her fears are beginning to play in, she can't rest. Her anxious side immediately kicks in. See, the anxious side is always afraid of abandonment. So when they hear negative stuff or bad things, they immediately think they're about to be abandoned. Or with fearful avoidance, they tend to feel like they're going to be betrayed or rejected, right? So he lets her know, I do shut down, in these situations, right? Where it's going to get a little bit intense, I shut down. Now, that's not a great thing to do. He has to work on that, right? Because when he begins to shut down, he's about to trigger her. And he's about to invalidate her by shutting down because she wants emotional connection. And she can't get that when he shuts down. When he goes offline, she's unable to connect, right? And so that sends her into a frenzy because when the anxious person, remember, fearful avoidants carry both an anxious and avoidant traits. When the anxious person starts to feel some type of way that there is going to be a disconnect, they have to go into attack mode. That doesn't mean they're going to attack you. It means they have to cling onto you. Now, her fear immediately kicks up, and look what she says.
But I can't fuck with that, man. This is what one thing he does, right? No, this is one thing you do. This is one thing you do, and he did it when we first met, right? He emotionally closes himself off, and I do think that's a little bit of issues from your past. I don't know what past, but it is because nurturingly, you're gonna get people to say, "Don't worry, don't."
Now let's pause it right here. She says something very powerful. She says, you. I believe this is your past and your trauma. You're right. So why do you not? So have we not started to ask questions more about, how we can begin to work through that? Right. Her immediate thing is to attack. Even the first question she asked, why do you think that is at 100 miles per hour? Now that might be a bit of the ADHD that she also carries. But also I understand that fearful avoidants do carry that too, right? In the sense of the fact that the anxious side tends to want to speed things through quickly. And so that begins to create this invalidation cycle, as I said before, because she has needs. She wants to emotionally connect, right? She might be emotionally overwhelmed and overstimulated and needing support, but she can't receive that because of the way that she actually asks for it. It's the way she asks for it. But then even in this space, he's telling you that he wants to be able to do that, but he can't do that. He's overwhelmed because of the way that she responds to things. So he shuts down. And then when he shuts down, she goes at him again, attack. But he's going to further press in the heel and dig his heels deeper into the ground. Well, I'm going to stay where I'm going to stay if you're going to keep on attacking me. Because for the dismissive avoidant, what they've experienced is that their needs can't be met by the other party. They don't know how to co-regulate very well because they never taught that. They were taught how to be hyper-independent. So they have similarities between themselves and fearful avoidance. And because they've learned how to be hyper-independent, they always believe that they have to self-soothe and be able to also meet their own needs. They can't ask their partner to meet their needs. They're also not great at boundaries. And that's actually why they actually become more avoidant. Your partner is dismissing you and actually pushing you away and spending more time alone because they don't like you, but more because actually, really and truly, they are trying to process their emotions and they're afraid of being inept and being afraid of being incompetent. Let me prove what I mean by that. That dismissive avoidants are afraid of being incompetent because the greatest fear was actually realized by what she said. Let's see what happens. The dismissive avoidant and the fearful avoidant do not want to feel judged for having needs. But look what she does. This is really interesting.
Panic, you don't need to say anything. I don't like that shit. You better get it together. And I'll be honest.
Let me go back.
You're gonna get people to say, "Don't worry, don't panic. You don't need to say anything." I don't like that shit. You better get it together. And I'll be honest. Ever since we've had kids, I'm less supportive of that shit. And I shouldn't really call it shit, but I'm calling it shit because it really pisses me off. You know what I mean?
Now let's just put it straight here first and foremost. He just let her know that he's been vulnerable and he's sharing things of his vulnerability with her. And that's why he shuts down, right? Because he's overwhelmed. And she immediately went into, I'm not coddling you. I'm not patting your back. I'm translating your language, right? I'm not going to pat on your back. I'm not going to try and nurture you in this moment, right? I'm just going to tell you to get on with it. Well, that's the invalidation. And that's actually the reason why it then struggles, right? Because then someone's got to get off the hamster wheel. Someone's got to decide to say, who's going to be the first one to get off the hamster wheel, right? And the hamster wheel is that we keep going round and round and round and keep invalidating each other, right? And we say things that are actually painful and hurtful to each other. Because we know that she wants to be able to have her needs met, right? Because she actually speaks about it quite a bit, about how she wants him to be more caring, more loving, more appreciative, okay? But we're now not getting that, because I'm starting to see why. It's because, first and foremost, when you're dealing with somebody who's a dismissive avoidant, there needs to be appreciation, acknowledgement, and affirmation. If those three things are not there consistently, the person begins to shut down. I like to call it, they begin to lock up. They begin to lock up. The lights start to turn off, and they begin to exit the building. Okay. And in the same manner, for the fearful avoidant, they also require the person also to stay in tune with them emotionally and begin to also support them, right? Almost unconditionally. Let me just show you what I mean by unconditionally, because she talks about a moment where she says, I feel like things have changed. I feel like you used to be able to take what I could give you, but now it seems like it's a little bit different.
In our marriage, where this thing that I've always displayed to you, and that doesn't, not me saying I've done it all the time, so be okay with it still, but this thing that I've always displayed to you, it changed, and the thing that I always displayed to you then began to reflect on how you felt I saw you. And that really saddens me, because that's not the case. Like, I've said to you so many times, I couldn't give a shit. I'll say to you, but I want to do this job, I want to do this job. And you're like, every time I say that, even when they did flats in Sheffield, you'd say, I remember, I would come home after my third shift, and I'd be like, I'm going to sleep for 2 hours, I'm going to go to another shift, because if I do that, I'm going to buy that car, And you would literally go, Aaliyah. And naturally, you doing that is because I feel like you think I want you to.
Now, just to highlight, I'm going to go back slightly again for you guys, just to kind of go back to what happened here, right? So you can actually hear it again one more time, just to see
know enough about me for it to have an impact on you. You would always think, she's chaotic.
Let me go further back
Bring
even
something
again.
to you, right? It don't bring something to me. But back then, you didn't know. You did, but you didn't really know enough about me for it to have an impact on you. You would always think, she's chaotic, her mind's busy, she's probably got ADHD because she don't sit still. You really thought I was a bit chaotic. But my behavior or my lack of interest in certain things, but although I'm still participating with you, never impacted you. And now I'm thinking about it, we had a shift in our marriage where this thing that I've always displayed to you, and that doesn't, not me saying I've done it all the time, so be okay with it still, but this thing that I've always displayed to you, it changed. And the thing that I always displayed to you then
Now, this is really
began to reflect on how you felt I saw you.
Now, what's really important here is what she's describing is a shift in the pattern and a shift in a change in the way they operate, right? At one point, she says, the behavior that I previously did, you were okay with it. And now the chaotic, that type of behavior is no longer acceptable. You have to understand that the fearful avoidant requires consistency, but they can be inconsistent themselves. They require stability, but it can be unstable. And that's actually why they require the stability, because they know they're unstable, right? And your stability will end up helping them be more stable. Your consistency will help them become more consistent. And so one of the greatest fears is that when things shift and change, they feel afraid. But the funny thing is, she's the one that's actually shifting and changing. Every 3 years, she has to do something different, because she's fearful avoidants love novelty. They like something new, something shiny to do, right? And everyone has their particular thing. Maybe it's go on holidays, maybe it's food, maybe it's cars, maybe it's sports, whatever they have, right? Everyone has their fearful avoidants have their particular novelty that they love, right? But in this instance, as she's describing, is her behavior was obviously chaotic. It was this, it was that. And at the beginning, she said, like, you didn't know me very well, so it was okay. This is actually an interesting thing, because from the fearful avoidant perspective, what she's describing is a mask coming off, right? And the mask coming off on both of their ends, right? First and foremost, when she used to do that behavior, at the very beginning, his mask was on. He was in honeymoon phase, and actually it was okay. And this is where the dismissive avoidant lets themselves down. They don't institute boundaries early, because they're trying to be, I want to be accepted because I want to be accepted. I want to be as accepted as I can be so I can be accepted. And what they do is they allow things to build up, and they're actually getting frustrated, but they don't actually tell you. So now they become passive aggressive. They won't tell you, they'll just do it. So you just suddenly see the person that you love and care about is with you today, tomorrow they're not with you anymore. And it's because they've snapped. Something's happened. It's been continuous. It's been going on and on and on and on. And now they've snapped. Funny enough, the same thing happens for the fearful avoidant, right? When they let things build up with resentment. So for her, she's saying that this particular behavior was working before, and now all of a sudden it's no longer acceptable for you. This is where the fearful avoidant is now triggered, because they believe that they want that unconditional acceptance. And again, unconditional to a degree, of course, but they want an unconditional acceptance where they are appreciated no matter what. They want to be loved no matter what. They want to be, they're wanting to be covered no matter what. But her mind was going to a place of projection because she's always afraid that the shoe is going to drop, because that's what she experienced as a child. When a fearful avoidant is born, they are born into a place usually of chaos. Their environment is usually chaos. The love that they get is usually performative. It is usually manipulative. There is some aspect of it where it's like, you have to do this for me. They're forced into servitude and love and care. Or they are abandoned at key moments in their childhood where they realize that to stay in the good graces, they have to perform, right? And so the mask drops off when they actually become themselves. And for the dismissive avoidant, the mask comes off when they're not really being honest. And then their fears kick up on both sides, because now the dismissive avoidant feels afraid because the instability of the fearful avoidant is causing them to be dysregulated. And the fearful avoidant is like, you're not consistent with me, and now I'm becoming dysregulated. Let me show you the proof of this, right? Because the very thing that she asks for at the very end of the video is for this very matter to happen. She wants a level of consistency, or what I should call it, regulation, that she previously had from him.
I want you to think, when I'm running around, when I'm on holiday and I've got like 15 tracks and I'm trying to make this really cool vlog, instead of you thinking, oh God, she's really stressful, now she's going to be stressful with everyone else, just think, wait a minute, this is a little bit who she is, she's a little bit chaotic, she's a little bit crazy. How best can I emotionally and physically show her, I don't have any clue what you're doing, but I'm here if you need me. Because that's what I need. And I will be honest and tell you, I didn't need that before from you. So you were showing those to me before, years ago, and I appreciate them, but I didn't quite understand why. But I'm letting you know that I've almost become, it's like a dietary requirement now. Like, you've been feeding me meat-free.
Now, if you listen to what she's saying, listen, that stability that you had, that consistency you had, that lack of that thing where you just let things roll off of a duck's back, right? You allow things just to flow off you and not become a problem, was something that I didn't even know I needed at the time. And now you no longer do that, there's a problem. The reason why that's no longer happening is because he's not been honest. I'm not saying he's lying. I'm saying that he hasn't been honest. If he was honest, he should have said, listen, there are times where I cannot cope. There are times where I am overwhelmed. There are times where your behavior doesn't work for me. There are times where your behavior is actually disappointing me. There are times where your behavior is very painful to be around, and your behavior, and they've had this conversation a little bit later on, but I think it wasn't instituted early enough. And therefore, because he doesn't drive that point home, because again, once more, sometimes what ends up happening is if you don't have clear-cut boundaries and you allow things to happen, it becomes difficult for you to institute, right? Or it becomes difficult if you're not able to explain it in a way that other person can receive it. Right. And so that grounding is absolutely essential for fearful avoidance. It's something I've learned myself as a dismissive avoidant, that we become dysregulated when we see the all up and down. It's just too much yo-yoing that causes us to feel some type of way. We want a level of constance. That grounding makes us feel safe. When the other person is doing too much yo-yoing and too much anxiety, because you have to understand a dismissive avoidant avoids the anxiety. So in order to avoid the anxiety, I need to avoid. And if you're bringing me anxiety by you bouncing off the walls and being all energetic emotionally, you're creating the anxiety and I can't get away from you. Therefore, I'm going to have to pull away from you, which is where the shutdown comes in and the silent treatment. But let's go back, because let's go a bit further on, because there's more to the story.
Somebody tells you like, oh, this isn't working, we're not moving forward.
Don't say somebody, we're being honest here. When I said that,
we're
not doing third person shit.
Yeah, but look,
Go on.
Can I finish? Yeah, I think it's one of those things where like, you've kind of got to, because regardless of what you think, there's things that you do that I pick up on and I'm not a big fan of and I just can't stand. But and you sometimes everybody there's his version, her version, and the truth. Do you know what I mean? In every
now, if you didn't hear what he said there's things that I pick up on. Right? The things that I pick up on. Here's what the dismissive avoidant won't tell you, and he should be telling you, is that he does pick up on things. He doesn't tell you does he pick up on some of those things, right? Things that affect them on a subtle level. But because they feel like their needs won't be met, they're like, that's too little to tell you. But don't realize that after a while, the little becomes a lot. After it builds up, it becomes a lot. He said, listen, there's things that I notice. What are those things that he kind of notices? Well, actually, it's funny because actually they have a disagreement a little bit later in this video, talking about the way that they are wanting to emotionally connect, and talking about the fact that she wants him to be in.
Film that again now. You know what I'm saying? I just want us to be more of a team, like we used to be.
Yeah, I get that, and like the only thing I would say is that from my perspective, I feel like sometimes the being in awe of you gets lost in translation, because sometimes, you know, and this is just being real, like I'm looking at you, and you know, I'm trying to engage with you, and your head's in the phone. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I'm not listen.
Yeah, I didn't say anything. Yeah, go
You know what I
ahead.
mean? You might be editing content, you might be responding to something, and it's just like when you those precious moments,
Yeah.
like build and add to things, and it's like what's happening is when you look up, and you know, I'm not there anymore, or I've moved on, or you know, I'm disengaged. You know, you're kind of like, oh, I'm not getting any. Oh, I'm not. I don't know. That might be how you feel. I'm not getting anything back, but it's kind of like at the same time, it's kind of like, you know, I get it, and I feel like.
Now, if you didn't hear what was actually happening in a situation, what actually happened was he's saying he was noticing he wants to connect, right? But I'm not saying he's right. Listen to what he's actually saying. He wants to connect. He's there at points in time, and he wants to connect, but then her head's in the phone. And so actually, what he should then his next move should be then, hey, babe, I want to connect with you right now. You know, I feel like I'm at a little moment. I want to connect with you right now. I know you're on your phone, but can you give me 5 minutes? Now, that's one of the hardest things to do when you're an avoidant, because asking for anything means I have to start co-regulating. It means I have to rely on you, and I have to be deep. I have to be interdependent when all I've ever learned is hyper independence. That makes someone feel sick. But that's the thing that he notices. He notices that when he wants to engage on a passive level, when I mean passive, is in a sense, he's not saying it out loud, but he's there maybe, right? Let's say I'm talking to you, and I see you on your phone. I want to connect with you, and I'm waiting for you to finish. I don't want to be rude, but I'm also not being assertive by saying, hey, can you give me 10 minutes? I want your time, right? And you notice that you may get rejected 1 or 2 times, right? And the fear is that's why the dismissive avoider doesn't ask. They're afraid that it will be rejected. If I say, can you give me 10 minutes? And you say, listen, I haven't got 10 minutes. I want to just do something on my phone. The person now begins to feel rejected. And the sensitivity of the avoidant, the dismissive avoidant, will now feel like I can't connect with you. And so they'll just take it as it is for next. They won't come back again, right? Because they've now touched a core wound, which is rejection, is what they suffered in their childhood. Right. So as he displays it, he says, I am there, but when I notice that you're on your phone, and so I can't connect with you. But listen to what she said. She said, yeah, I hear you. Let's see what happens when she said, I hear you, because later on she goes on to say something, right? And this is the dupliciousness. And when I say dupliciousness, and not in a mean way, sometimes what happens with a fearful avoidant is that sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. And they need to work on having a level of consistency when it comes to when they're saying their thoughts. The dismissive avoidant also needs to learn how to be courageous to say a thought. Okay. All right. So we gonna play this next clip for you, this part here, right?
No, but let me say
And that's
something
not
to you.
that's not green pass for anything to just put up with things. That's the commitment to work through it has to come before everything.
No, it does, but I also then I'm gonna make you aware. I've
Go
said
on.
this lots and lots of times.
Yeah.
This whole I'm not there when you're looking from your phone bollocks. I'm gonna call it bollocks, right? You need to be there all the time, and I promise that I will be there for you all the time.
So right there and then, she literally just invalidated his needs right there. That's what I'm saying to you. That's why they're not. That's why he can't give you his needs, right? And am I saying that you should only give the man his needs? No, I'm telling you that it's a two-way street. But on this occasion, we're seeing more of the woman who's complaining about her needs and one of the needs we met, but she does things that actually disconnect the relationship, right? She just said it's absolute bollocks. Now imagine you telling the person, listen, I want to connect with you. When I want to connect with you, you're in your phone. Now, something I know about fearful avoidance and anxious people is that they are connected to their phone a lot. And one thing I know about dismissive avoidance, them too, is that they are also not as assertive when it comes to saying what they actually need. So they start trying to read the body language and the verbal cues. The problem with that isn't always what's happening. You see, the fearful avoidant gets lost in the novelty, but gets lost also in the numbing of their situation. So instead of thinking about things through and processing some of the emotions, it's easier to be on their phone. It's easier to be doing some editing. It's easier to be doing something that they believe to perceive to add value to them. Because remember, one of the core things that happens to fearful avoidance, just like anxious people, is they're always trying to earn their value and their keep. So when she's in her phone, it's not personal, but you do need to ask her, hey, I really want some time with you. Like, give me 10 minutes. I want to connect with you. You know what I'm saying? Let me just have a talk. Can I just sit with you? Can I just hug you? Like, I really want some time with you, right? And when he told her this, and this is why it's really important about safe spaces, and we'll discuss this in the next video, the safe space has been destroyed because immediately she told me, she said, I'm going to call bollocks on what you just said. Literally, on the phone situation, right? You need to be there for me. I need to be there for you. Now, we can blame the ADHD all we want, but we have to be very honest. The way that she communicates is horrible. Okay. And she just needs to change it. She needs to reframe it. Being so blunt works at certain opportune times, but we have to tamper the way that we say certain things so it can be received by the other party. What she could have said is, "Hey, what moments are you talking about where there has been times where I'm on my phone and you've been wanting to connect because I haven't seen it? Please let me know. I'm trying to understand where it's coming from, right? Because he's telling you how he wants to connect, but certain things are happening. You're gonna get what you want, but she's not even hearing that. All she's hearing is, no, I need to challenge it. I need to make sure I've got a voice. I need to make sure I'm not being squashed. I need to make sure I'm being heard, which is probably some of the trauma that she's also felt, like she hasn't had a voice for a long time. And she's now speaking up. And this is what happens when sometimes people go to the extreme when they're trying to now go the opposite way of what they used to do. Like if they were very silent, they try to go to be very, very loud and very boisterous because they're trying to make sure they don't get taken advantage of. But listen, look, we have reached our halfway mark. We're going to do a part 2 of this. If you're interested in this, please leave a comment down below. Let me know what your thoughts are as well. We're going to continue this avoidant cycle trap between a fearful and a dismissive avoidant. This marriage can be solved. It just requires people to be able to pay attention to the needs that are actually going on in this particular relationship. So look out for part 3 of this video. If you haven't done so, go and watch the long live that I did as well. And I break down some stuff as well on there. But the next part, we're going to discuss more about the needs and also go into a little bit more as well around being able to kind of, speak to those needs as well. And if you need some coaching, please do reach out to me. If this has touched you and this is something that you're dealing with, and you're saying, hey, coach, this is what I'm dealing with, my man or my girl is doing the same thing. Listen, reach out to me. This is what we're going to start doing, because to solve the issue oftentimes isn't with the other party. When we're in a relationship, the mirror must be facing ourselves and look at how we show up to the party. Okay, so make sure you guys like, share, subscribe. Again, please, if you're going to be booking coaching, please book a discovery call if you have no clue about my coaching beforehand. Okay, it just means that we can just make sure that we know exactly where we're going, what our expectations are, and what we're trying to achieve. But if you've already booked with me before, then you already know what I do. Okay, all right, appreciate you guys. We'll see you again soon.